So stories are really driven by people, right? And in the startup's case, the founder. So I think it's really important that founders find a way to communicate why they're doing what they're doing. How is it that the problem impacts them or their community?
Welcome to Hustle Share, the podcast that features the daily grinds of unique hustlers around the world to show not our differences, but that our hustles are very much alike. Now here's your host, Ronster Bae-Pyong.
Welcome to episode 28 of the Hustle Share podcast. My name is Ronster, and I'm your host. And this episode is brought to you by Payroll Hero, a time, attendance, scheduling, HR, and payroll solution for Philippine companies. If you're new to the show, welcome on board. This is a podcast that lets you improve your hustle by learning from other hustlers. So we talk about the journey, the grind, and everything else in between to reach the success and the learnings that usual startup founders and business people go through. However, we use a lot of adult language on this podcast, so make sure that there's no kids around or you're in a private environment. Now today we're very lucky because we got to talk to someone who deeply understands the whole startup ecosystem of Southeast Asia. And we are talking about none other than Mohan Belani, the founder and CEO of E27 and Echelon. Now we all know that Echelon 2019 just concluded, and there's a lot of great things that happened there. But today we're going to be talking about the stuff that got us here. Because Mohan is going to share how he started E27 and how the first version of Echelon was built and the struggles they had to endure just to stick it out to where it is now. Mohan also shared how they choose which stories to feature on the website and how they were able to bounce back after he had to let go a big portion of his team back in 2016. He also shared the impact of how the events and the articles that they make an impact through startups and investors as well. Be prepared to take notes because Mohan is going to share world-class tips on how to navigate the whole startup scene in Southeast Asia, like how you can build an amazing team, how you can go to startup conferences like Echelon on a discount, and the qualities of a good startup because he's seen them all, thousands of them, because of his work in E27 and Echelon. And lastly, he's going to share with us the trends of what startups should be looking out for and great advice for startup founders in this very jam-packed episode. So if you're ready to learn the hustle behind E27 and Echelon, let's begin this episode right now. Welcome to the latest episode of the Hustle Share podcast. We're international today, and we're coming up. We're interviewing someone who I would attribute my exposure to the startup world for, and I'm a big fan of what he's doing, not just for the Philippines, but for the whole region of startups, because he is the founder and CEO of E27. Welcome to the show, Mr. Mohan Belani.
Hey Ron, thanks for having me.
Oh, that sounds good. So we're doing a mic check. It sounds really good here. But Mohan, thank you for being here, because as you know, for those people who are listening right now, we're recording this in advance. We're doing this a day before Echelon 2019.
Yep.
And I've never seen anyone throw an event and be this chill, right?
No, I have an amazing team, right? Like they've all gotten their stuff
Right.
together. They're doing everything they can to make sure the experience is amazing for everyone tomorrow. And I'm really blessed to have a team that I can completely trust.
No, but dude, I've seen people throw startup events in the Philippines and they're a week prior they're dying already.
Yeah.
And you're just still all chill. Like we can
Like I was telling you earlier, right? I could literally go to the gym now, go back to sleep a bit earlier, and
Wow.
I know the entire thing tomorrow is going to be top notch.
That's
right?
just
Yeah.
expertise
It's
right
all
there.
kudos to the team.
But you built that team. So kudos to you and your co-founders to get that done. But before we get that and whatnot, Mohan, I always ask this to our guests on the show. Mm-hmm. So Mohan, what's your hustle?
So we started E27, or I started E27 because we really believe that startups make the world a better place.
Yep.
Right, and essentially, what could we do, right, to support startups?
Okay.
And the more we help startups, the less they fail, the
Yep.
more problems get solved in this region.
Correct.
So fundamentally, like, our mission, right, is to empower entrepreneurs with the tools to build and grow businesses.
Yeah. But what's the meaning of E27?
So the long form is actually Entrepreneur 27.
Oh shit! I didn't know this all this time.
So in the early days, it was Entrepreneur 27, and we would get messages from people saying, "Hey, your site is down, or there's something wrong with your site," and then we realized that they will misspell the word entrepreneur.
Got it.
Right. And that's why we shortened it to E. And 27 is because Paul Graham, I think way back in 2016.
Graham.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he
Y
wrote
Combinator.
YC, right?
Yep.
He wrote a paper about how the best companies to fund are those started by founders 27 and below.
Wow, really?
Yeah, because that was his thesis, and they
Okay.
don't have all the preconceived notions or the ideas about how
Yes.
certain industries work. So if you look at Dropbox, Facebook, Airbnb, a lot of these fairly well-known companies today are started by very young founders.
How young were you when you started E27?
Oh, so in school, this was like 2007, so 24.
Wow.
So I did fit the age bracket.
Yeah,
somehow.
you're in.
And then everyone keeps asking me, so is it going to be E28, E32, and now E36, right?
Right.
Yeah. But to add a caveat to this though,
Okay.
there is another study that says that the actual age for successful companies,
35 and above.
yeah, is actually much later. 42 is the average.
Oh, really?
number, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. because you're bound to fuck shit up.
Yeah, I mean, the networks you have are really important. Right, the lessons you make are pretty valuable down the road. And I think the older you are, a bit more humble and humility, right?
Reality and idealism merges into a great, equilibrium, right, and whatnot. But Mohan, when you started this, right, was this your first venture ever, or did you do some corporate shit first?
No, so I was in the Bay Area in 2006
Okay.
and 2007, so I was there for about a year. So Thaddeus, my co-founder, was there a bit earlier.
Okay.
And he was there
Shout out to Thaddeus.
Yeah, and he was there for like a year and a half.
Okay.
Right. So we actually met there very briefly because when I went there, he was coming back. Yeah, so we didn't really have much time together there.
And you knew each other prior, or you just met him
No,
there?
so we were on the same program.
Okay.
So we knew of each other. We probably said hi and had a short conversation, and that's
Got
it.
it.
And then when we came back, we were doing this as a community thing for fun first. So
Fun. Right.
so the idea was never to build this into a company. The idea was that we could use this community and platform to meet other founders, and we could then start companies.
Wow.
So in the early days, E27 had like over, I think, 20 founders. So the guys from Zopim that Zendesk acquired, Money Smart, and quite a few other notable companies are actually E27 founders.
Really?
Yes.
Holy shit. But at that stage, I mean, Singapore is always like, we always reference Singapore as the Silicon Valley of Asia.
Yeah.
Right? The best companies, the founders, the VCs are all here. That's why we're here.
They attract all the people here.
Correct.
But all the successful guys are not necessarily from here, right? Which is what makes it so great in some sense.
Correct. I mean, because it's a treasure trove is a melting pot of, by default, of a lot of cultures as well. So it's a good ecosystem to thrive.
Yeah.
But when you started this, was the ecosystem this good already, or what was the foundation?
We were obviously way too early, right?
Yeah.
It was we were young and naive, hoping that the ecosystem would move as fast as our aspirations.
Right.
But of course it did not.
Okay.
And that's where I think from 2007 to 2012,
Yep.
it was really more of a community thing, a fun thing. And at that time I was working at some startups, Little Lives, shout out to them.
Okay.
I was working at another company called MiG33,
Got it.
mobile social gaming. I had a gaming company for a while.
Wow.
For about a year, hoping to be the Zynga of Southeast Asia.
Right.
And that's how I got to build a team in the Philippines. And then in late 2011, me and Dennis, we decided, okay, let's rebuild this. Right?
Not as a side hustle anymore.
Yeah, let's do this for real, and let's give ourselves 6 months, because that's more or less the amount of money we had in the bank.
Okay.
And then we brought on our very first angel investor, Nick Lim from 8 Capital.
Wow.
So he was the first guy that really took us seriously, believed in us, spent quality time with us on a daily basis to help build up the business.
That's great.
And then, little did we know the seed money came in July 2012.
Got it.
And then that slowly led to where it is today.
How did you build the first MVP? Was it was there a peg? Was it a tech crunch? What that you were trying to build and whatnot? What was the first hypothesis that you
Yeah, so the blog that we had back then was a blog, right? That was meant just purely for visibility, but I think the first approach that we were taking was more events driven.
Events.
Yeah, and Echelon, as people know today,
Yes.
it took us 9 failed events to get to Echelon.
way.
Yeah, so we had tried many different models, some to do with cloud, some to do with mobile,
Okay.
and none of them really stuck. And Echelon was the one that finally hit the nail in the head.
What was the formula that finally hit the nail in the head?
So good question. I think the one thing that we did is that we combined some level of pitching where we tried to get companies that had not been shown publicly before. So Express in Music, which was a company that got acquired recently, was one of them, right? So there was an element of pitching. Then there was an element of local and global sharing. So we had the founders of Techstars, thanks to the great folks at IDA. They were the ones that flew them in. So there was global sharing. But then we also had local founders sharing, the Zopim guys, Hungry Go Where, which is the Yelp of this region, and a few others.
Okay.
Right. And then we bundled all of that. It was like 100 people that came.
Wow.
It was so very humble beginnings. Right. And then after that, people were like, okay, what's next?
Got it. And again, I'm getting a lot of goosebumps here and whatnot because 2012 was my crash course to the term startup. I didn't even know we were called startups.
That's when we first met,
Right. I was exposed to the startup industry because I was one of the participants on that event. It was my first idea. I was just in college and whatnot. I pitched. What would you call? You were not called Echelon back then, or it's not the top 100.
It was called the satellite events.
Satellite events.
And so everything that we built in Echelon was because of what users told us they wanted.
Got it.
The entire satellite model was a feedback from our users that hey, don't just do your thing from Singapore. Come to our local markets and learn about what's happening locally as well. And we realized that was the big game changer for us because it forced us to travel in these regions, meet local founders, really understand what the local ecosystem
and
was
pitching
like.
competitions didn't even exist back then, or if there
it was
were,
very
it was
early.
very, very early. It was so weird because I was like super nervous. I didn't know what I was trying to do in that.
Really very early.
And I became first runner-up to the eventual winner, which is Payroll Hero, which is now our sponsor in Hustler. It's so weird.
It's amazing how things all work out together.
Absolutely, it just comes full circle somehow and whatnot. And I discovered startups, and now I realized that people actually fund startups. I didn't know this.
Yeah.
So it's just a really big eye opener, and I thank you for that because had you not gone to the Philippines until now, you're still doing that, right? A lot of startups who are just or ideas whatnot wouldn't even be put in. But after that, so Echelon started growing. Was it in parallel with the website? Was there a different pivot that you guys do?
Very good question. I think in the early days, the events were definitely much more well known than the website.
Yes.
Like I would literally be at a meeting representing e27, and the person would tell me to attend this amazing event called Echelon. And I'll be like, yeah, it's the same company, right? And they'll be very surprised.
Yeah.
And I think on hindsight, it was a cultural thing in some sense because internally we were more events people and we really didn't know how to position the website.
Right.
But I think there was a big turning point in the last 5 years. So now the website has clearly become a much more prominent.
Whenever I look for tech shit, I go to E27 first right away. And because I also get first dibs because you're my friend. So whenever you share, it's like, ooh, that's fresh 1 minute ago.
Always helpful to get loyal ecosystem
Absolutely. And again, also, this is the first guy that wrote about Chatbot PH being acquired without in a heartbeat was you guys.
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
Shout out to Lyra for I sent her a PR. Hey, we've been acquired. And right after a minute, you tagged me like, whoa, boom, and it becomes viral.
So I personally love the Philippines tech ecosystem.
Yeah.
I believe, like a lot in it. We even have an office there. So anything from the Philippines, like we get excited quite easily.
And you fly a lot on a leisure. I remember you telling me a lot. Like, I'm going to be
literally flying next week.
There you are. By the time this goes out, you're in the Philippines.
Yeah. If it comes out next Thursday, I'll be flying to the Philippines that night.
There you go.
31st.
All right. But Mohan, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, let's talk about E27 now and what it took, because it's not easy putting up something like this, especially on the Echelon side and both the website side. And more of that after the break. Hey, hustlers. Let's talk about something really important real quick. something that a lot of you I know can relate to, especially if you're running a business. And I'm talking about payroll. You know how hard it is and time consuming this is, especially that you have to do it twice a month. And as a guy who's been running tech startups for over 10 years now, this is something that I did not enjoy doing at all. It's not like it's because I don't like paying my employees. No, but it's already hard looking for funding to fund for your payroll, and then it's so much more harder if you're doing this manually. Luckily, I've found something that I highly recommend that you try, and it's from our friends from Payroll Hero. And here's how Payroll Hero works. They use your employee's face as your primary biometric to avoid buddy punching and ghost employees. So unless your team can figure out a way to swap each other's faces, tracking time and performance will never be your problem again. Payroll Hero is also very consumer friendly because it's also based on web and mobile, and it's also cloud-based, so you never have to worry about your clunky old biometric machines. So now you can automate time, attendance, scheduling, HRIS, and a payroll platform wrapped all in one. We have a very special bonus for you hustlers listening on the Hustle Share podcast. All you need to do is go to www.payrollhero.ph and use the promo code HustleShare to get a 60-day free trial. That's technically 4 payrolls that you can do all for free, so you can see how it works for you. And the beauty about it is there's no upfront payment needed to do this. So never worry about payroll again. With Payroll Hero, optimizing work productivity with happiness. And we're back from the break. We're still in Singapore with Mr. Mohan, the founder and CEO of e27 and Echelon. So it's one and the same, as you said, right? But Mohan, quick question. So from when you grew e27, 2012, walk me through how you grew that and what was the exponential things that you saw in the region happen, and how did e27 and Echelon grow with it?
So I think the growth that we've had, right, has always been incremental micro steps.
Okay.
Right? So I'm a firm believer of small, tiny changes leads to big long-term growth, right? So we've never tried to take the route of like raising a ton of money or trying to do too many big things at one time. Because from experience, I've always felt that has never really worked out well for us.
Right.
So it's all about tiny micro step growth. So in the early days, it was events.
Got it. And the business model both revolve, for e27, revolve around the synergy between the event and the website, or are they two separate business models?
So in the early days, it was really driven by events.
Got it.
And then a lot of like bespoke activities with corporates and governments. And then the media or the online business really only started to grow maybe from 2015 onwards.
Yeah, because this is a hard game to play. I mean, I'm sort of like in it now with the podcast game and whatnot.
Like media is tough.
It is super. Yeah. Right. But how did you get out alive? A lot of people die in this process, right? Yeah. Or just stay at a certain state. But how did you make it to that next level?
I think one of the things is we were very conscious about what not to do, right?
Got it.
So in the early days especially, we were very tight on the activities that we wanted to do, the markets we wanted to expand to, the kind of products that we wanted to build.
Okay.
So everything had to be driven around what users wanted, not what we thought was valuable. Right. So that's how the jobs platform came about.
Okay.
Because I think that was sometime around 2013. Because we would get more requests for people to say, hey, can you write about me hiring a developer?
Yes.
Versus can you write about my company? Right. So we're like, okay, let's just launch jobs.
And naturally, people will gravitate towards you because you're technically media.
Yeah.
And everybody would be like, hey, Mohan, write about this. This is my PR. This is my PR. This is my PR. But a quick side note real quick. How do you choose which one to feature? Because everybody wants to be featured.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you can't feature everybody.
Sure.
How do you know which one is noteworthy that you can write about them?
So that's a really difficult sell. And
Right.
and some internally we have some guidelines. Like
Okay.
we only try and feature companies that have a certain milestone or benchmark.
Got it.
So in the early days, we would even feature companies that were just launching.
Yeah.
Today, some traction and some kind of a footprint in what they've
Right.
done is helpful.
Yeah, I remember guest list had you were nice enough to feature even if we're just about to launch.
Yeah,
or
so
just
in
a
those
few.
days, yes. But
Yeah.
in today's world, like if guest list were to come to us straight off the
right.
boat, it would be a lot harder for us to do so.
Absolutely.
Right? But for frontier markets like Myanmar, Cambodia, so these are markets where we know, right, they don't really have the traction of the region.
Right.
And it's our duty to kind of give it a bit more visibility.
Absolutely.
So those kind of markets we are much more open to
Depending
covering
on
early
the
stage.
stage of the ecosystem per se.
Yeah.
Got
That
it.
that definitely makes a big difference.
Got it. But when you do now, with what you know, what makes a good story to write about or to share?
So stories are really driven by people, right? And in the startup's case, the founder. So I think it's really important that founders find a way to communicate why they're doing what they're doing. How is it that the problem impacts them or their community? And figure out a way to think like, okay, what will be relevant to the users who read that particular site and then make the pitch. I mean, with tech, right? If you want to write a piece for E27 versus maybe a local tech blog versus maybe a CNET equivalent, right? Which is more global and consumer, the story angles are all different. And you have to put yourself in the user's shoes, right? And think about what kind of a story that will make more sense to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's great. So for those people who just listen to that, so make it compelling, make it a good story, because people always love
stories to
writing
sell.
stories, right?
Yeah.
It's not just, you don't throw in random, oh yeah, we have X amount of users. Everybody's saying that, and most of that,
Correct.
guess what? Everybody knows it's bullshit too. It's all beefed up and padded
Features
up.
and users
Right.
only go so far.
Correct.
Because they don't really connect with people.
Right.
But stories make a huge difference.
Absolutely. Now, in those type of stories, how do you see that impact also funding rounds and whatnot? Because, I mean, when you get to E27 as a startup, that's your hello world moment. Everybody knows about you because the same people that read as consumers, these are the same people that also fund startups and whatnot. Have you seen that impact directly proportionate to how startups go big?
Yeah, so multiple times, right, I've had startup founders who would say that, thanks to a particular feature that they had on E27, an investor would reach out to them and invest in them, right?
Right.
So investors are also looking at opportunities.
Absolutely.
And the opportunities are driven around problems and solutions. Right, and if you're able to show to investors, right, the potential of your problem,
Right.
and the impact to it and how it could be monetized, right, there's value in that.
True.
Right? So fundamentally, I think investors are also driven by the same needs that the rest of the world are, and especially in tech and startups, it falls back to our vision, right?
Correct.
They genuinely believe that the startups can make the world a better place, solve real problems.
Absolutely. They just have a different mindset in terms of how they want to monetize by investing. And that's what we discussed that in the Michael Lynch episode.
Yeah.
Of,
Most investors are investing other people's money.
Correct.
So they do have their own stories to tell the people above them as well, right?
And
so we need to help investors in that standpoint.
Correct.
Think a few steps ahead, right?
Correct. And that story that you're going to publish is a big boon to what that story will be to the LPs.
Yeah, at least it gives that first level of visibility.
Correct. And again, media always is a good thing, in Google. Absolutely. So again, that's a big thing. Now, Mohan, I want to do a quick pivot here because it's not all fun and games in startup life, because technically you're also a startup.
Yeah.
Right? And I need to know, because there was a good phase, and probably till now, there were two big players always here in Asia. That's you and Tech in Asia. But I know you're friends too. And this became really a tight competition in the past few years. And I don't know if that mellowed down.
Sure.
But how do you coexist and be symbiotic still with a really good, very good competitor?
Yeah, I think so. Competition is always good, right?
Right.
It keeps you on your toes, but it also shows that whatever you're doing has value.
True.
Right. And I think in the early days, because of the stage of the ecosystem and the stages of our products, there were a lot of similarities. So it's very easy to get compared, right?
Correct.
But I think over the years, what has happened is that the businesses with us and our competitors have taken very different approaches and different strategies.
Correct.
Right. I mean, and only time will tell which is the right one, right?
Absolutely.
But the best part is that as the ecosystem matures, as the ecosystems get more differentiated, like Singapore's ecosystem is radically different from the Philippines, right?
Yeah.
You start to see specific use cases come up.
Absolutely.
And thanks to that, right, like from a competitive standpoint, we are fairly different from all our competitors.
Right.
In the way we build our businesses, in our business models,
Right.
in the way our products are done, and in terms, even sometimes even the markets that we focus on.
Got it.
Like we are extremely focused on Southeast Asia, but we are also really focused on markets that want to come into Southeast Asia.
So
a lot of
you're-
our
yeah,
a lot of
got
our
it.
businesses are with the Central Asian side, the North Asian side, which is like your Taiwan and Korea.
Got it.
Not just within Southeast Asia.
So you're bridging that for the ecosystem as well.
Exactly.
That is amazing. Now, let's talk about mistakes and fuck-ups here. Mohan.
So many.
Right. There was a phase in 2016 that you wrote about this. You weren't really, black and white. Some people don't want to put that out there. You had to downsize your team in the event of fundraising.
Yep.
How did that happen, and how did you bounce back from that?
Yeah, so we made a lot of mistakes, right, in terms of not properly calculating like how much potential revenue would have been and how much funding would have come in.
Got it.
And then because of that, we had some serious cash flow issues, right? And we had to let go of the team.
Yeah.
It was an extremely painful process.
Oh, man.
But
I know this. Shit.
we're glad to live to tell the tale, right?
Right. Like Jon Snow.
Yeah.
Like Jon Snow from Game of Thrones. Like, right?
Yeah. So like the thing is like moments like this are always opportunities to take a step back and rethink and reflect, right?
Right.
I think there are many things that we would have done differently if that process didn't happen. Right. But there were also some really good things that happened, right? Like I'm very proud to say that some of our best employees today are those that stuck through in that tough times.
Yes.
Right? Because of those tough times, we actually were able to cut 80% of what we did or we were doing at that point in time because we felt that it was just not contributing to the business that much.
Got it.
And really double down and focus on the stuff that really mattered.
And
a lot
which
of what you
was,
see. So the biggest one, of course, was the big Echelon event in Singapore and
Yes.
the road shows. Right, some part of it was the projects that we do online. A lot of the micro things that we stopped were the founders drinks businesses, the consulting businesses that we thought didn't really add value.
So laser focus, dropped everything and focus on the ones that are really core to what E27 was. Okay, now how did you right the ship? Okay, so now you let go and whatnot. How did you have to retool? Did you have to hire specific talent from that point and whatnot?
Yeah, so there were a few things we did, right? I think one was radical transparency, right?
Got it.
I think I literally had to get the whole team together and be extremely transparent with them on what was expected. How was things going to be like in the next 6 months? I think if you ask some of them, right, they probably will tell you that it was one of the worst experiences of their lives.
Absolutely.
Also probably
These
one
are
of
the
the most
toughest
rewarding.
conversations always.
Yeah.
Right.
So like we would have that's really when we started instituting daily huddles and obsessive respect for the dashboards and an obsessive view on numbers and stuff like that.
Got it.
And today that's a lot of what we do, right? But to me the starting point was transparency, just being very open and honest with the team on what's happening, what's good,
Don't
what's
sugarcoat it,
good.
tell it as it is. Because eventually they'll find out anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
And the second one is just focus, right? We literally just completely focused on what was working well and double down on them, right? So to me, it was really making sure that we were investing in the stuff that matters.
Got it.
Yeah. And then the last one is, of course, surround, like for me, from a founder perspective, right? Making sure I surround myself with the right founders and mentors that could support and guide me along the way, right?
And
Because
you have an attorney. There's so many people that you
I'm
know.
very blessed to know a lot of amazing founders.
In terms of the whole you're a LinkedIn within yourself. You look at your phone like, okay, what do I need today? Like,
So the one word of wisdom that one of my investors shared with me at that point in time, he's like, okay, so I hope you're not taking too much time off from this, but also realize that this pretty much happens to every founder. And he shared the story with how it happened to him. And the most important thing was to bounce back and to start fixing the problem.
Absolutely. Amen. Now, Mohan, let's take another break. And when we come back, let's talk about tips. Because I don't know anybody who probably knows as many startups in the whole Asia more than you do. So, again, let's take a quick break and let's discuss the tips and the Hustle Share tips area with Mohan after the break.
Effective automation is the best way for businesses to stay competitive. And having a chatbot for your business lets you easily automate and optimize sales, marketing, and customer service in the digital age. Chatbot PH will build, train, maintain, and market your chatbot across all messaging platforms. Our team uses the latest AI technologies to enable you to better serve customers 24/7, 365. Set a meeting with us today. Message us now at m.me/chatbotph.
And we're back for the final part. We're still with Mohan Belani of E27. And by this time, you would have been in Echelon. So I hope you had a good time. Pretty sure it's going to be crazy good as always. So congratulations in advance for you,
Thanks.
Mohan. But first question, this is the hustle share time where we literally share our knowledge to our listeners or our hustlers who are listening to the show. I wanted to know about how you built your team because media is tough.
Yeah.
Right? And the talent that requires to have a good media company,
Right.
there's so much competition because again, they can work in a lot of setups.
Yep.
How were you able to build your team and what are the qualities you built to get that done?
Yeah, so I think I genuinely believe in people, right? So all our top guys, names that you guys might be familiar with, Kevin, who's our editor.
Expedin, right?
Yeah, Expedin, Daryl, Jiawei.
Right.
All of them started out as interns in the company.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm a genuine believer of helping people grow, giving them the right opportunities,
Got it.
the right coaching and mentorship, the right tools, right? So to me, right, I personally believe in helping people go from the bottom to the top,
Got
as
it.
opposed to planting people from outside and putting them
Ground up. Right.
Yeah.
So I always use this analogy because are you like a big market player in the NBA where you get free agents and try to win a championship or you go through the draft,
Yeah.
through the G League and develop them to superstars?
Yeah. I think it also depends on the stage of the company, right?
Okay.
In certain stages, if you really need to scale and grow fast, you do have to bring people externally. And that's, of course, something that we're thinking about right now. The second thing is that if your team really doesn't know how to do it,
Yeah.
or you don't have people who are coachable, then you definitely need to bring people externally.
Got it. To stir the pot and whatnot. Now, how in terms of culture, because this is a big thing, especially when you guys hit when shit hit the fan,
Yeah.
right, in 2016 and whatnot. How did you make sure that the culture stays the same and it doesn't unravel?
Yeah, so maintaining culture is really the founder's job, right? Especially in a company that I would say is around 0 to 40 people.
Absolutely.
Right. So I think the founder has to obsessively talk about culture, lay out examples of when the culture has been followed, and also point out times when the culture has been violated, right? And we always obsessively bring out or discuss culture during our town halls.
Wow.
So at the very least, once every 3 months, like as like an old uncle, like
How do you do that?
the whole team will hear
Yeah.
that. Yeah. I started out with explaining to people or sharing with people why are we doing what we're doing, and to always keep the focus in mind. For a company like mine, right, it's easy for a writer to feel like, oh, okay, at the end of the day, all I'm doing is a 200, 300 word article. How is it impactful or meaningful? But I have to always tell them, look, you have to think about the outcome of that article.
Yeah.
Like there's someone behind this who's probably worked for the last 6 months to put that one funding round.
Absolutely.
I mean, all we're doing is translating a press release to an article.
Correct.
But to him, right, it's the encapsulation of
That's
6
this
months
glorious
of
moment.
pain.
Yes.
Yes. And this could actually, bring him forward, which could help his life, his companies, the people in his companies, his product, and his users.
No, and I still remember that feeling whenever you guys write about something, just to see my name in an article.
Yeah.
From a writer's point of view, they probably think, okay, that's just whatever
Yeah.
article. But dude, the amount of pride and the amount of gratitude we feel after you guys write about us.
But
Yeah.
on a deeper level, right? So in the early days, of course, as the company was being a bit more prominent and the ecosystem was rising, we did have some bad actors, right? People who would behave like they are above the ecosystem or so important to the ecosystem.
Okay.
And that's why our core value number one is respect the ecosystem.
Got it.
Right? Because without it, right, we're not here. And we see it as a privilege and honor to be able to serve it, as opposed to us owning it and
Right.
if- and
You're a servant to the people in that way.
Yeah,
Got
in
it.
that sense, yes.
And any other tenets aside from respect the ecosystem? What else do you usually tell your team?
So we have quite a few core values. So the second one that I really like is don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I think that one is fairly cliched.
Okay.
But to be honest, internally we do have many good examples of people that have just tried to do something first, and before like internally like thinking too much of whether it should be done
Right.
or not, right? Teamwork is a huge thing for us. Okay, because we have a team that is fairly broken up. So there's a content team, the events team, and the BD team. You can get stuck within your own teams.
Got it.
And this is where we say we all need to work together to tap on each other's knowledge and wisdom. Because how a content person thinks versus how a BD person thinks versus how an events person thinks are radically different.
Absolutely.
And you can get very good insights by just spending a bit of time and tapping on each other's wisdom.
And you shouldn't be afraid to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Right?
Not at all, yeah.
And then just go for it. But if you fuck up, own it.
Yeah.
Come clean.
Yeah.
Right. Now, Mohan, I'm curious because again, I don't know any person that knows as many startups. The whole thing, the whole ecosystem, startups, investors, charlatans. Also, there's a lot of charlatans out there who are just fronting like, "Yeah, I'm a startup guy too," but fucking just talks and do stupid shit.
The
right?
entrepreneurs.
No, that there are. So those are the things. But I wanted to know, from your point of view, how has the startup ecosystem, at least in the Southeast Asia, grown now? And what do you like, and what are your things you don't like that's going on?
Yeah, so I mean, there've been so many things, right? I don't even know where to start. The most obvious ones are from a funding standpoint.
Yeah.
Right? The amount of funding deals happening, the amount of investors, the amount of players getting
And there's
involved.
exits now, even in small markets.
Yeah, so even like for Echelon, right, when we were looking at the list of people who were signing up for the event,
Right.
I mean, you had people from organizations that you would never typically associate with.
Really?
Airbus, Rolls-Royce, these kind of thing, right?
What?
Unknown,
Okay.
like for us, we were a bit like, okay, why? So we were more interested to ask them, hey, what are you guys doing at
Are you trying to give
at
out some
Echelon?
Rolls Royces?
Yeah.
Game, I'm in.
And when they talk to us about how they view tech and startups as a way to learn, and they are also looking at how to disrupt their own selves, then you know, okay, wow, so startups are fairly legit.
Absolutely. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, I think the other big one is the fact that the quality of founders have definitely taken a radical.
Absolutely.
turn
I
for the
agree.
better.
Yeah, because a lot of people now in the 2011 to early 2000s have now matured. They fucked up in one way and they matured, they humbled themselves, and they know what it takes now to get to that level.
You also have a lot of really smart people from corporate who have spent a good amount of time in a particular industry, so they know the ins and outs and how it works and all the problems that associate with it, and are coming out to build companies to solve those problems.
Perfect example, there's one episode that I really like in Hustle Shares. Brian Koo, the president of Grab in the Philippines.
Yeah.
He was a consultant for a long time and whatnot. And then when he came, he dropped all his corporate shit.
Yeah.
Rolled up his sleeves, drank with the taxi drivers just to get them on board. It's just amazing story. So if you want to listen to that, just go to that episode. So corporates and whatnot. How about investors? Are there better deals now? Not because there's still, it's a double-edged sword. And Michael Lind said that in his episode that there's still a lot of predatory deals happening in the angel round. But there are bigger paychecks. My goodness.
Yeah.
In the Philippines alone, there's 2 big funds that are announced in the past month alone.
Sure.
150 million from Ayala, and then there's 2 billion peso one from JD, some corporate funds.
Yeah, so I remember this was at Geeks on the Beach in Boracay.
Yes. Okay.
I was literally talking to Jojo Flores.
Yes, Jojo.
About how Philippines corporates should launch venture funds and then get the guys that really know how to do it, run it, right?
Correct.
So it's great to see that finally happening, right?
Yes.
I think the timing is good. I think if we would have done a few years earlier, it might have been too early.
Right.
But now is like the perfect time for it to happen.
Right, and if you just manage to stay alive as well, and this is a Ray Refundo episode prior to this one, or a couple of episodes from this. You just managed to stay alive after through many pivots, and also now got to a tipping point where boom, just spiked up.
So that is one of the big tenets of founders that I noticed, right, work really well, is perseverance. Those that think that you could sell your company in a year or two or flip it really quickly, right, it's a marathon, right?
Yeah.
The great founders I know have really stuck on it and have been working on it for years.
Yep.
They've done multiple pivots potentially. But they also know that it's a long game.
Long
right?
game. It's not like, I need to get ROI back in 2 years. No.
It doesn't work that way. I think smart investors also realize that.
Right. Absolutely. And it's, again, if you want to put up a startup, prepare to invest at least 10 years of your life if you really just want to go. And again, there's a high chance of failure, but hey, at least you've tried, and the learning you're going to get here, you can't learn anywhere.
Yep.
Now, in terms of I want to zero in on the Philippines at least, right? You've seen this happen before. There were more events, to be honest, and I thank you in behalf of the ecosystem because you're the only one left. That's from the outside coming in. A lot of it's a double-edged sword in the Philippines. There's a lot of new stuff going on, but I feel like we're just so disconnected from the ecosystem, from the whole region sometimes, that we don't get to put our best shit out there because we're like a hermit. We're in our own little cave.
Right.
But there's a lot of stuff happening in the cave.
There is a lot.
Right, but from your point of view, what's going on with the Philippines? How's it different from the whole region?
So shout out to Tech Shake, right? They're having their conference in June
Ignite,
25th, I believe. Yep. Right, the Ignite conference. I'll be attending that.
Okay, we'll see you there.
So I think Philippines has a ton of potential, and I've said that earlier as well. The big issue that's I think challenging a lot of the Philippine founders is definitely the infrastructure.
Got it.
Philippines probably still has the most expensive internet in the region, but also the slowest. And I think if that alone could be addressed or fixed, right, it would radically increase the productivity of the workers that are tech-centric, but also make a lot of the Philippine services more accessible to the world. Right. The second thing is I think more Filipino founders can try and take a more global mindset or global worldview.
Oh my God, right.
So on some part of it involves travel, right? Getting out to other markets, going and just finding out what's happening in the rest of the region. So I'm doing that myself. So I was in Chiang Mai a few weeks back.
Right. You told me, right.
For the Splice Beta conference. That was all about media. And I was in Bangkok for the Rise conference by the guys at Rise in Bangkok.
Right.
And those alone were very mind-blowing, opening.
There's always something new that you learn.
Yeah. So you have to put yourself out there. You have to go talk to people to learn, to take an open view.
Right.
And that takes some effort. Like my dad always tells me, right, like having fun requires effort too. If you just stay at home and sit down and watch TV all day, you're not going to have a very fun life.
Absolutely.
So learning and growth does take effort. You really have to get out and meet people, right?
Got it.
And attend events and participate in forums that you believe will help bring your companies forward.
Now you mentioned events. Now I wanted to ask about trends, right? I mean, there's always a word of the year. It seems like, okay, we're blockchain, we're AI, whatever. What do you think about these buzzwords that always get thrown? And does it really help you in terms of we're fintech or whatnot, right? There's always that hot topic.
Yeah, I think everyone just wants to know what's the flavor of the month, right?
Got it.
I mean, you can use it for be it fundraising or whatever, but just don't do it to the level where people don't trust you anymore, right? I was in a pitching event recently, and 4 out of 4 companies, every one of them had AI and machine learning in their pitch.
Dude, it's hard. It's not what you guys think it is, right?
The first question was, how are you getting the data?
Right.
And how much data are you planning to process, right? And I think 2 of them could only answer the question, but they clearly didn't have a sense of how things work.
Correct, because AI is data play, right? You can't be throwing an AI word without any data to process and train your AI for.
The major controllers of AI are going to be the governments.
Correct.
Right? So I think buzzwords are only helpful to get a sense of what you know is current, but if you're using it as a way to bolster your evaluation or make people look or try and show people like you look like you know what you're doing, I think that would be to your disadvantage.
Absolutely. Now, but in reality, what do you think are the biggest trends that people should look out for, that aside from the buzzwords that get thrown at?
So I would look at industries, right? I think there are a certain number of industries that are very relevant to this region, that founders can make a huge impact, right?
Wow.
So up and coming it's obviously the logistics industry.
Yes, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Boom.
So logistics is huge.
Right.
It's a serious pain point. Last mile delivery is a serious pain point. Logistics management solutions are huge pain points. And I think logistics companies, the bigger ones, are also starting to realize that technology is definitely needed to help them scale. And it's not that they want to do better, right? Just looking at the amount of e-commerce that's happening regionally, most of these companies are just not going to be able to cope if they don't use technology to radically.
Absolutely. I mean, there's people who tried, like the Honest Bees of the world, and then they but it's not like in vain.
Not easy,
Right.
It's really not easy, and that's what makes it amazing. So it's really difficult to do, and I think that's where there's real opportunity for something.
But if you get it right, my God, you'll be getting the pot of the five leprechauns and whatnot. That's crazy.
The second one is obviously healthcare and in particular the Silver Age industry. I think there's real good to do there, right? And as the region gets richer, as the middle class gets better,
Right.
the next thing that people are going to be wanting to invest in are themselves and their own personal health, because that's at the point when they can start to afford it. So I was just reading a book on obesity, right? And the reason, no, but the reason why the most obese people are always the poorest people is because they really cannot afford a lot of these.
And we just love to eat too. I'm obese, by the way.
So if startup founders can say, hey, why not tackle the healthcare problems and look for creative solutions that can reduce the costs? Then you make all these healthcare services a bit more available to the general public. Right? And then again, the region gets a bit better.
Can we zero in on several startups that are not out there, do you think are going to be big in the next? Or just put your Nostradamus hat right now.
This is really tough.
Yeah, but I understand in terms of what you see. I mean, you've seen this happen. There's always a pattern, right? Like it's a good team, a good whatever, market timing and whatnot.
Yeah.
What do you think are the good startups to look out for out there?
So, if we look at sectors, right, I think fintech is going to be huge.
Yes.
Right. So, especially lending companies or companies that focus particularly on microfinance.
Okay.
I think there's going to be a legitimate.
There's a lot of them now. In the Philippines, there's at least 5 or 6 players who do that, right?
Yeah. So there's going to be a legitimate unicorn in that space.
So,
right.
Yeah.
The cybersecurity space is also another one that's going to heat up a lot.
My God.
I mean, Israel probably takes the crown for that, but I won't be surprised if there is going to be a player in the Southeast Asian market that's able to rise up.
Wow.
Right. And I mean, one of our own Echelon speakers that I was telling you about earlier, PatsNet, Jeffrey Tiong.
Okay.
So they do more like patent search and they work with like amazing corporates like NASA.
Wow.
So,
NASA?
Yeah. So they to me is a company to look out for in terms of a future potential.
What's the name of the startup again?
PatsNet. PatsNap.
There you go.
Very under the radar company. I mean, most people don't read about them that much.
Yeah, we'll be in the show notes, so if patsnat.com or whatnot. But these are the things that only Mohan, or at least not the average Joes like us, get to know, because everybody goes to you and whatnot.
I'm very lucky to spend a bit more time in it.
Oh my God, like everybody's like, Mohan, yes, Mohan. Especially tomorrow when Echelon starts, everybody's going to be all your ass. So I'm very fortunate to get this time up close with you, because tomorrow's going to be...
I'm so lucky to have you at the event. Yeah.
Appreciate it. No, again, you hooked me up to go to Echelon. And this is my second straight year. It's only last year till you hooked me up that I went to Echelon.
Nice.
I was broke a lot. I was broke. I mean, at the end of the day, startup life. Like, I want to go to Singapore, but it's very expensive from a
So fun fact, right? Like I was able to go to a lot of big events in the US.
Okay.
Always because I emailed the organizers and I asked for a free ticket in exchange for my time to volunteer to help.
Wow.
And I'm surprised most people don't do that over here. Like, I'm surprised I don't get a ton of emails from, let's say, students or first-time founders saying, hey, I would like to volunteer to help and just give me a free pass.
There's your life hack right there.
So to me, that's the best thing you could do for any event organizer, because you always need help. And what more to get help from a guy who's a bit more mature, who's running a company, so he knows the industry. And fun fact number 2, I used to always help at registration.
Wow.
Because then I get to meet everybody that comes in.
Yes, you're the first line. And you also get to see the hot chicks too. You get to screen it out. Like, there you go. And whatnot. Now, Mohan, last question. I'll throw a little bit of a curveball at you here. Knowing what you know now, right? And then just all the crazy stuff you've been through. If you were going to give an advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Wow, okay. Yeah, that's a tough one. So from a work standpoint, I think I would... I wish I didn't work so hard from like keep doing many things.
Right.
I wish I'd taken a bit more time off to think about things a bit longer, to plan a bit more, to think about more, to reflect more.
Got it.
Right. To slow down so I could be faster.
Got it.
Right. So I think that's one of the things I wish I had done more. From a personal standpoint, I think investing in personal growth on an earlier basis. And this is both like fitness as well as health.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not surprised if many founders are depressed or emotionally
or obese like
tired.
me.
Yeah. So like just realizing that, hey, investing in physical health is more important than probably invest in mental health. Right?
It's always the balance.
So spending time and energy there was one of the things I wish I'd done earlier.
Thank you, Mohan. Now, a little shout out to those people who are, again, been to Echelon by this time and whatnot. What do you think is up next for E27 that we should look out for?
So we are always looking at how best to scale our mission, right?
Got it.
And a lot of what we do is offline, so we can only impact a certain number of people.
Okay.
It always bumps me out when amazing founders from all over the region simply cannot attend the event because they either don't have the time to fly down, or they don't have the funds, or they just maybe missed the boat, right?
Right.
So our goal is to figure out how best we can scale our mission using more of the e27.co site. So I think at least for the next 6 months, we're going to be spending more and more energy building the right features, fixing some of the issues on the site, or not some, a lot of the issues on the site, to better serve the ecosystem.
Okay.
So
So again,
that's something to look out for.
awesome. So again, Mohan, thank you very much for sharing such
Thank you for having
wisdom. And again, congratulations in advance, because I know E27 and Echelon is going to be a big hit again this year. And for those people that want to, send anything to Mohan or whatnot, where do they go?
So the best way to get in touch is email mohan@e27.co, and you can access me on social media like LinkedIn or WhatsApp.
Okay. Or just go to e27.com, co as well, to check out the latest happenings and whatnot. All right, Mohan, thank you again. And if you guys like that episode, please don't forget to give us some love, share us some shit, because we are going to wrap up season 1 already at the end of June, right? We're going to take a quick break because we're going to up the ante in season 2. So make sure you give us feedback, and also join the Hustle Share community on Facebook, because that's where in that episode, in that group, we're going to be giving you a heads up who we're going to be featuring soon. So if you want to get the first dibs, go to that group and message us on our chatbot on m.me/hustleshare, powered by ChatbotBH. Again, Mohan, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Ron.
And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.